for a few years if possible. Wouldn't you? Well, if you don't pay back, you might not want to borrow. Well, if you got a Bible this Sunday morning, let me invite your attention to a familiar passage of the scripture. I've been on what I've called a little vintage retro tour of some messages I've done back in the 80s, and I've come back to Acts chapter 16. Verse 25 says this simply in the NIV: about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. Suddenly, there was such a violent earthquake that the foundations of the prison were shaken. At once, all the prison doors flew open, and everyone's chains came loose. A lot of years ago, I captioned this: how to handle a midnight situation. How to handle a midnight situation. I have been summoned back to evaluate the possible and potential impact of an ancient event on my life in 2023. After all, isn't that why we keep coming to church? We're looking for ways to integrate what we hear on Sunday into our lives on Monday. Hopefully, you're not coming here just to look good, but you're coming to become good. I am worried because the anxiety and frustration level of people who occupy sanctuaries like this one around the globe is unprecedented and unparalleled. How is it that so many people can worship in Zion and live in depression? Yes. How are we able to know the goodness and the greatness of God and be buried eternally in grief? Too many of us have entered the sanctuary only to impress God with our faithfulness to the sanctuary. But our lives remain in shambles. We stand on the ground of uncertainty on a daily basis, and many of our lives testify to the fact that we do Sundays well, but it's in between Sundays where it gets tough. It's in between Sundays where you have to implement the spiritual citizenship you hear about on Sunday morning. It's in between Sundays where you have to show why you go to church. It's in between Sundays where you are commissioned to be living examples of what you have heard. Because after all, holiness is not within the framework of your copious note-taking. You won't find any levels of God commendations or badges of achievement because Your Bible is outlined with special color markers for history and poetry and prophecy. It would not be your familiarity with the word that makes your life better. It would be your integration of the word into your daily walk that makes your life better. Worshiping in proximity to other holy people would not make you a holy person. Because holiness is not self-righteousness or self-centeredness or spiritual boisterousness. It really is our ability to dedicate the parts of our lives that God requires when He wants it. Because our greatest and most tenacious struggle is how do we bring together holiness and humanity. And most of us are probably failing the course. I'm not going to ask you how you're doing because I know you can't be trusted to grade your own test paper. And so I have come to this moment because I clearly understand that if there ever was a time frame where I would be willing to join those who were in the chorus with Chicken Little and declared, "The sky is falling. The sky is falling." Some of y'all might be familiar with Little. However, I read this passage and understood that actually we are moving into a midnight. Midnight is not a reference to chronology or a time on the clock or on your watch. No, it's really a metaphor for moving into a moment of darkness that appears to be leading you away from the light and into a deeper abyss. And in a moment when we live in such a divided states of America, in a moment where many of you are ready to call Tyrone Davis and tell him it seems like you can turn back the hands of time. Because if you're paying attention, there are a whole lot of people who are doing just that. Many of you never dreamed you'd be living in a day where somebody would have the audacious courage to stand before an international audience and say your history has no value. Maybe you haven't paid attention because you turn to good times when the news come on. But we're living at a moment of darkness. It's a difficult moment. It's a moment you're not going to navigate by ignoring it. Because there is a growing segment of the nation that has fallen in love with hate. And they love to hate and hate to love. Write that down. I've come to talk with you this morning because many of us are not clear on how to handle moments when it gets dark. Some of you are frightened by the arrival of darkness. Some people are a little uneasy about darkness, and some people are emancipated by the darkness. You know, they only come out at night. So don't look at me like you don't know what I'm talking about. I just wanted to talk with you about the idea that you have to have a backup, a safety net, a plan. Well, let's become a little more sophisticated. You need a strategy. You need to know what to do when you don't know what to do. Would that work? You ought to know where to go when you don't know where to go. You don't have to have all the information, but you ought to know somebody you can ask when you got a question. And I'm trying to determine what has happened that many of us are frequent flyers to church, but we live out our lives after worship weekly every week. W-E-A-K-L-Y. You got it? Thank you. It's important that you not come here where so much energy and inspiration and motivation is being distributed for your benefit. I believe some people tend to come to church with some ideas that are anti-church. They have defenses. Even their body language says, I don't have an inbox. You can look at them and tell the way they sit, I'm not here to receive. I brought somebody else to see the doctor. I'm not sick. I don't need this. I'm going to sleep. Let me know when you're through. But the truth is, all of us need what God has to offer. And you never know what you don't need until you have it, and then you can discard it if you don't have a need for it. But don't count out that you don't need it before you see what it is you don't need. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. I wondered about such a strategy. How do you recommend to people that they engage simply in praying and hymn singing in 2023? I mean, some of you all want to look like, that sounds reasonable right now because you're in church. But after church, let somebody tell you for that complaint you got. Go home and sing a hymn, baby, and just pray. And see how you take it then. You're not going to be as receptive to that advice as you are to my statement. I promise you, you won't. It's just your Sunday morning face that made you act like, I agree with you, Reb. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns. And then 26 says, suddenly, a violent earthquake came after the praying and the singing. Well, I'm excited about what happened to them, but what if none of us are in jail? I need a formula that works for other people other than some spiritual jailbirds. Well, that's good. I'm glad that happened to them, but I'm not locked in any place. Well, let's talk about the possibility that midnight has crept upon you and night has put on its nocturnal garment and you didn't even notice it coming. Because sometime before you know it, it's dark and you look out and say, what? And maybe just in your life it could be like that and you are unable or unwilling to admit that you are moving and merging into a moment through which you are unable to pierce what's ahead of you. And so just let me begin by suggesting to you that midnight is that moment between sunset and sunup, between sundown and sunrise. It's the period between your goals being achieved and your next goal being set. It's the moment when you have succeeded, but you are planning your next success because your success has deleted some memories about what it took for you to arrive where you are right now. And you've decided it's so good. I think I'll do it over and do it better this time. But somewhere in between your view while you stood on the mountaintop of accomplishment. You looked and you saw another apex that you now believe you can summit because you said, if I can do that, I know I can get to that mountaintop too. The only problem is you just can't gravitationally jump from one mountain peak to another one. So that means you're going to have some midnight time. On your way to the next mountaintop, you got to come down from one and go through some more dark moments, some more difficulties, some more inconveniences, some more unsolicited, some more uninvited, some more unwanted elements that are going to be thrown into the equation of your potential prosperity. What you trying to say, preacher, with all them words? Somebody going to throw a monkey wrench in your business. You're going to wake up and find a dead cat on the line. Is that simple enough? I'm sorry. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. Midnight. Midnight's the moment when your tool chest does not contain the tool you need to fix the problem you're facing right now. Yeah, that's midnight. Midnight is when you run out of resources in spite of your academic excellence and your scholastic achievement. In spite of your credentials, you are still at a standstill. You're stuck at an intersection of ignorance, meaning you lack the information for the current application to handle your present situation. Just that simple. I hope y'all are texting your friends what I'm saying. You quoting me? Appreciate it. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. What's your strategy? What do you do when you don't know what to do? I mean, you ought to have some emergency plan, escaping the house. You got one at your workplace. You know where you're supposed to go if you hear certain noises or sirens or signals or bells. You already know, I use that window and I go to that door. On the plane, they tell you, look to the exits, and there's always one behind you, so always check behind you too. They want you to have some heads up about possibility. And I know many of us are waiting on heaven's gates to swing open, but in between time, in the meantime, what's your strategy? What's your plan? You ever had a midnight? What's midnight, Reverend? Well, in times like these, when wages are frozen and people are striking, when those at the top are taking both the cream and the rest, it's midnight for a lot of people. Your resources are crunched. Midnight for you. So midnight for you could be being at the bedside of a loved one while you pray they get sicker. That's a midnight. And midnight is having to keep your car several blocks from your house because there's some other people looking for it besides you. That's a midnight. Anybody identify? I got to come where you live. I say, you don't want to say amen. So I need to be able to touch you where you are. Midnight. It's a dysfunctional family unit that just can't seem to reconcile. Doesn't matter how many counselors you see and how much therapy you receive, you're still in the same spot. That's midnight. Midnight is when you keep planning to have a ministry of leftovers and you keep ending up with zero. Midnight. Many of us are facing those kinds of moments right now. In any environment, on any level where you live, I promise you, things are not looking like they ought to look. They are not at their best. you have some angst, you have some worries, you have some concerns. Many of you are concerned about the quality of life for the people who are coming after you. Will it even equal the quality of life you have now? Because the rich keep getting richer while the poor keep fighting for crumbs. And those at the top keep using their divisive games to make poor people believe that other poor people are their problem. It's midnight, y'all. If only the poor could organize against the wealthy, as opposed to colors organizing or talking about culture wars when they really mean it's a race war. It's not about culture, it's about color. It's a midnight, y'all. They're trying to turn back the hands of time. They're trying to take you back to the 50s. When they talk about make America great again, they mean it wasn't great for you, just great for us. I mean, come on, wake up and holler at a brother. Because you got to live here until you go to heaven, so you need to hear some of this too. It's important that we realize where we are and then develop a strategy. And what I've come to understand is that verse 25 does not introduce us to their conversation when they were initially incarcerated. In other words, they didn't just get in jail. They've been here for a little while. But it was midnight when they came up with their strategy. At midnight. At midnight, they came to a reasonable consensus about how we ought to handle this. I'm believing that maybe Silas, who was less aware of Christ than Paul, had to be a little anxious. Come on, let's look at the humanity of the people in this drama. I could only imagine the new guy saying, what are we going to do now? You know a bail bondsman? Who do we call to get out of jail? And Paul just says, well, just hang on, since I'm the one who invited you to come on this missionary trip. The first thing we need to do is just sit here a moment and remember. And that's what I want to tell you to do. When you have a midnight that you're facing, when you have a moment that you can't handle, when you have a crisis consuming you, when all of your triumphs have turned into tragedies and nightmares, chill. Be still and know that you are not all you got. Because the only thing that makes me panic is when I believe the guy in the mirror is my only help. If you want to get scared, think what you see in the mirror is all you got to help you. If it don't scare you, it should. When I look in the mirror, I don't care what I know, where I've been, and what I got. I get scared if I'm my only help. But thank God, when I remember, I got to recall. You know, remember is a well-used, well-worn path in our phrasing, in our language and conversations and communications on a daily basis. But remember really means to reassemble. And so when you remember something, all you do is put your past back together again and bring it up to the future so you can look at it. Remember is also the direct opposite of dismember. Because dismember is to take apart, to separate, you know, as in something real gory, dismemberment of body parts, which you'll see a lot of over the next few weeks, is Halloween. But remember means to put it back together. And sometimes if you just stand still for a moment and remember what God has already brought you through, then you'll realize that what I'm facing ain't nothing like what I've already come through. Go on and tell somebody, I don't look like what I come through. But sometimes you forget to remember that you've already come through some difficult moments. You forget to look in the rear view mirror. If you did, you'd see some dark nights behind you. If you did, you'd see some giants laying by the wayside. If you did, you'd see some high mountains in the horizon behind you. In other words, he's brought you past some giants. He's brought you over some mountains. He's brought you through some darkness. Remember, every time I remember, I calm down. Every time I remember, my heartbeats diminish. Because I start telling myself, if he did it then, he can do it again. Remember, I don't know about you, but my soul looks, I got to go, y'all. My soul looks back and wonder how I made it over. When I remember, I stop complaining and start claiming my glory, my blessings, and my testimony. When I remember, I stop talking about what I don't have and start thanking him for what I do have. When I remember, about midnight, obviously Paul remembered who he was. But after remembering who he was, I want to applaud him for not being impetuous and impulsive. A lyrical philosopher who died a few years ago named Riley King said, don't make your move too soon. I know y'all wouldn't know him, but some people used to call him BB. But I applaud the idea that Paul and Silas, for some reason, didn't make their move too soon. You see, you can't react to what's going on too impulsively and too impetuously. You might make a mistake and do something harmful to yourself. Like a cowboy who got a new job in the West on a ranch. First night in the bunkhouse, he was unfamiliar with the noises and the movement. Slept with his gun beneath his bed and saw something moving by the foot of his bed and shot quickly. And then he shot a hole in his foot. He made his move too soon. So you got to watch it. You can't make your move too soon. You gotta wait for a while. You gotta ponder it. Sometimes you gotta let it marinate sometimes. You can't make your move too soon. Why? Because you see, you don't see things like God sees them. You can't, because what you see may not be reality. How many times have your eyes lied to you before? You can't count the times your eyes have lied to you. My eyes don't lie to me. How many times your eyes told you, he's a good person? Come on, let me help you count the ways your eyes have lied to you. How many sisters' eyes have lied? He's the one. You don't even know where he is anymore. Your eyes have lied to you before. Don't make your move. Don't make your move too soon. You got to wait a while. Let God position you. You see, because faith is not a practice, faith is an expectation. Faith is knowing and expecting that God can rearrange your moment and give you a new edit and then play it again and make a better version than the first version. That's faith. Bible says about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying, and they were singing hymns unto God. And you know, I wonder what it was that made them hang on so long. For I already know that these guys, they were put in an inner cell. In other words, they were confined in a maximum security prison. And these men of God had been imprisoned for preaching the word. They'd been thrown in jail all because a young woman had been healed in the land who had been used by her masters. Let me close here now by saying to you this morning, you need to have a strategy for dealing with your midnight situations. My Lord, yeah, Lord. Paul and Silas sitting there in jail, put in jail for doing a good work. Did you hear me? They were put in jail for ministering, but being a menace to the authorities. Oh, Lord. They were put in jail because a young woman took away the livelihood of some scoundrels who were abusing her. Yeah, Lord. And then they were in jail. Not only were they put in jail, they were whipped with a many stripes. Good God Almighty. And look at them in jail with no plan. Here you are. You come into church every Sunday morning. Life falling apart, and you go to sleep in church. I come to tell you, you need to have a plan for dealing with your midnights. Oh yeah. Let me close here. But I got to close by saying, learn to remember what he's already done for you, and then wait on him. Yes, Isaiah, I'll tell him what you told me to tell him. Isaiah told me to tell you, they that wait on the Lord, they shall renew their strength, mount up with wings, fly away, hang on in there. And then when you remember and when you wait on him, bow down on your knees. What do I tell him, Reverend? It's not complicated. Father, I stretch my hand to thee. Oh, no other. No other help. No other help I know. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I come to tell you, when you get through praying, you ought to have a song to sing. Oh! You ought to have a song to sing. I will trust in the Lord. You know what happened when you remember what he's done for you. It brings joy to your life. Joy about what he's done for me. When I think about what he's done for me, I know there's nothing God cannot do. I'm holding on. Oh, yeah. Holding on. God's unchanging hand. Holding on. I'm just holding on. I'm just holding on. When they got through praying, I can't leave without telling you. When they got through praying, doors came wide open. Excuse me a minute. Any prayers in the house? Any prayers in the house? Is there anybody here know what prayer can do? Oh, prayer will. Hey, prayer will open doors no man can close. Prayer will. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. Oh, yes, he will. I got to tell you, don't throw in the towel. Don't wave the white flag of surrender. You and God, you can handle your midnight moment. Don't give up. Don't give in. Hang on in there. Your labor is not in vain. Can I tell you this? I got to give you the mic, Pastor. I want to give you a heads up. There's a midnight with your name on it. I know things might be all right now. But there's a midnight with your name on it. That's the bad news. But I've got some good news for you, Ken. The good news is God got a blessing with your name on it. Your name on it. Your name on it. Your name on it. Oh! With your name on it. Oh! With your name on it. With your name on it. Hey! Hey! With your name on it. I know we've been through the pandemic. I know we've been through a lot. But I got to share this with you. If you feel safe enough, slip your arm around a neighbor and just tell them, be not dismayed. whatever betide you, God will. Oh, God will. Oh, God will. Oh, God will take care of you. Oh, take care of you. Take care of you. Take care of you.